Greetings, people. What is up? This is the Shark Attack. I am Sean Williams. There's a reason why we had a different music for the Shark Attack tonight, and it's very sad news that we found out this week. Leon White, better known as Big Van Vader and also the Man They Called Vader, or just simply Vader, passed away this week at the age of 63. He's had a lot of health issues as of late, and he definitely made his presence known in the pro wrestling world. And I felt it was fitting that in the first segment of this show that I talked about the man that we all know as Vader and memories that we had of him. And as a wrestling fan growing up, I gotta tell you, I had a lot of them. But I, of course, had to ask the group. So I got a couple of memories from people about Vader. First, from my boy Patrick, saying Vader versus Ric Flair from Starrcade 93. My boy Brian Waters said, doesn't have a favorite, but he remembered Jim Cornette introducing the WWE audience to Vader at the 96 Royal Rumble. Which I happen to remember also, where he was just an eliminating wrecking machine, and even when he had, I believe it was the SWAT team debut, and the first one came in and Vader eliminated him, then the other one came in after his partner was eliminated, they both went to the ring, and Vader took them both out. So that was definitely memorable. And newcomer to the Shark Attack group, Travis Yankee, said Vader versus Sting, appearing in Boy Meets World, his WWE theme song, Vader Time, he loved that theme song, and also the firstborn American IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. So, gotta give you credit, rookie. That was quite a lot. And definitely did your homework. I'm very impressed with that. And last, my boy T5, Travis Smith, said Vader versus Sting. Now, I'm glad he mentioned that last one, because now it's my turn to give some memory, some of my own, about Vader. I remembered that helmet. I remembered that big elephant helmet with the spiked shoulder pads, and that shot smoke out the back. I remembered that. That was the first time I ever saw Big Van Vader. But then I also remembered, as T5 mentioned, Vader versus Sting. And why I remembered that one? Because Vader challenged Sting for the World Heavyweight title in WCW. And not only did he actually beat Sting, he beat him clean. No outside interference, no breaking the rules, no ref getting knocked out, nothing. A Vader bomb and Sting was done for. Vader was the new champion. And later on, he ended up losing the belt to Ron Simmons, who at that time became the first black man to hold the WCW World Heavyweight title, which was a tremendous accomplishment at that time. But, of course, and I was discussing this with T5 also, who could forget Vader versus Cactus Jack? I still remember to this day one interview or post-match interview, Cactus Jack saying to Vader after attacking him, saying to Vader, "You made one big mistake. You let Cactus Jack live." And screaming to him, "You let Cactus Jack live." And Cactus Jack, he was kind of in between. I guess you could say he was one of the first to kind of go to use the tweener title. But Cactus Jack had been a heel for quite some time, and then you had him and Vader colliding. It was like a collision to see who was the greater, but at the same time lesser of two evils. And it did the job, and those two, it was a brutal war. But I think what I also remember about Vader was the fact that he redefined the big man, or added a new definition to it. Most guys that were of his bulk and size were not really considered to be agile or expected to be limited. Vader was the kind of guy that had no limit. Vader redefined what he was supposed to be. I mean, from doing moves off the top rope, the Vader, to doing a moonsault, the Vader salt. And really just redefining the term heavy hitter, which he most definitely was that. Because there have been a lot of people who have reported that he worked stiff, but he just didn't like to hold anything back. Now, I, of course, like many, remember his role or his run in the WWF/WWE. I was always disappointed he never held any gold. I don't know why WWE never thought that they could actually give him or why they didn't give him a title, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And like Travis Yankee mentioned, I do remember his appearances on Boy Meets World and always found those to be humorous, including when Feeney told him to put Eric Matthews down, and Vader tells him, "Make me," and Feeney tells him, "Gladly, Leslie," and Vader quickly goes, "You wouldn't." I was like, oh man. He was definitely not the kind of guy you would want to pick a fight with. But one memory, and I saw this on YouTube, was around WrestleMania time when Heath Slater was trying to grab the spotlight, and then started to say, "It's Slater time," to where we finally heard, "It's Vader time," and Vader came out, and him and Heath Slater had a match, and the crowd was chanting to Vader, "You still got it," and basically beat the living bejesus out of Heath Slater, and finish it off, of course, with the Vader bomb. Not the power bomb, but the splash that he did from the second turnbuckle, aptly named the Vader bomb. But he knew, he looked like he hadn't missed a beat. And I remember the week later, it was Psycho Sid returning and taking on Heath Slater, and frankly, Sid looked like crap. And all I can remember thinking was, Vader looked 10 times better than Sid did in that match. But the bottom line is, people, we lost a tremendous legend in Vader, in Leon White. He redefined what a heavy hitter and what a big man is supposed to be. That it's more than just being tall, or like 7 feet tall or anything like that. He proved that being a big man could mean so much more than just that. And it's a sad loss for the world of pro wrestling, and he will truly be missed. So condolences all around to his family and his friends. To Leon White, the man called Vader. Tonight, it was Vader time one more time. All right, so before we get back into the swing of things, since it was kind of sad to talk about, let's be honest. I'm going to be honest here, people. Talking about the passing of a wrestler or anybody is never easy. So I feel we need a quick break for this one. So with that being said, people, we'll be right back right after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian H. Waters, and you're listening to The Shark Attack with Sean Williams.
That was, of course, my good buddy Brian H. Waters. Check out his show Break It Down with Brian H. on Podbean. And, of course, check out The Wrestling Realm with him. And, of course, another good friend of mine, Dwayne Allen. But right now, people, now that we've talked about Vader and honored his memory, let's talk about what happened over this past week in wrestling. It's time for a mic drop.
Let the battle commence!
First, I'm going to talk about NXT TakeOver Chicago, which I gotta say, I didn't have a whole lot of expectation heading into that event. But the moment I watched Lorcan and Birch in their against the Undisputed, I gotta tell you, that match really amazed me. That Lorcan and Birch really did not disappoint. they have tremendous potential, and even though they came up short against Undisputed, it really was a great way to start that card, and it was a tremendous effort on both tag teams. I mean, Strong and O'Reilly, of course, they didn't disappoint. You had Adam Cole at ringside, which, even though he wasn't on the card, but Triple H was saying this may be one of the deepest, if not the deepest card or roster that NXT has had in quite some time. Because not just for who they had on the card at Chicago, but it was also for the fact of who it was so their roster is so loaded on there. They had to actually select. It's like they have to be more selective on who is on it. And we saw at ringside, on top of current NXT talent, we also saw the appearance of Keith Lee. So that's a big signing for WWE. So anxious to see what he does for NXT. And then, of course, there's Ricochet versus the Velveteen Dream. To say that match met my expectations would be an understatement. I mean, it just does not do it enough justice. I mean, we already know how good Ricochet is. And if Velveteen Dream wasn't already a made guy following his match with Aleister Black in the past, he definitely made his presence known on that night. Because Velveteen really stepped it up, and so did Ricochet. To where I thought if you actually let that match go any longer, I'm pretty sure they'd damn near kill each other. But Ricochet came up with the win. Aleister Black retained the world title, but, you know, even though the match wasn't exactly as bad as I thought it was going to be, I still am not buying it into Lars Sullivan. I'm just not. Nikki Cross may not have won the NXT Women's title from Shayna Baszler, but she definitely gave her a run for the money, and it showed me, of all things, that keeping her on the NXT roster was the right call. And not as opposed to having her go up with Sanity. And mark my words when I say this, Nikki Cross will hold the NXT Women's title. So, let me put it like this. Shayna Baszler didn't beat Nikki Cross, she survived her. Because she may have won the match, but she couldn't make Nikki Cross tap out. Choked her out, yes, but she was never able to make her tap. And then, of course, you want to talk about two guys who damn near killed each other. How can we not talk about Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa? I mean, Ciampa took the ring apart at one point and finished the match off, cuffed, mind you, doing a DDT onto Gargano onto the exposed wood of the ring. Now, some would look at that as a fluke one and saying how Ciampa barely got by the skin of his teeth, all of which is true. But, old saying goes, it's all about how you finish. And he did exactly that. But here's the biggest challenge, though, for Ciampa and Gargano. How do you top that? Because I'm stumped. There's only one of two ways you can top it. A title match, which one of them will have to hold the title, which, in my opinion, it has to be Ciampa. Ciampa has to hold the belt so that it adds more incentive and more drama for Gargano when he finally does hold that title, which he will. But as good as 205 Live has gotten over the last several months, and it's improved greatly, when they go up to the main roster, do not put Ciampa and Gargano on 205 Live. You can do so much more with those two than that. I mean, you have more. There's so much potential in what you can do with those two. And while we're at it, don't put Ricochet on 205 Live either. I think the end game for those guys should be a lot bigger than that. and it's more than what you guys are giving them if you send them to 205 Live. Now, on to Money in the Bank, which, look, I'll admit, at first, I wasn't a fan of Alexa Bliss winning the women's Money in the Bank, and frankly, she was definitely not my pick. Now that I've had the chance to soak it in, it was the right call. And I know there's a lot of people that are saying, oh, she's pushed down our throats. Oh, she's pushed more times than Roman Reigns is. Shut up. Just shut it, trolls. Let me tell you something. She's a heel. You're supposed to hate her. You're supposed to not like her. In fact, she's damn good at making people hate her. That's the whole point. And yet, all you guys are missing that point. Quickly stepping aside to with Ronda Rousey, who her first singles match, I gotta give her credit. She didn't disappoint. And yeah, she didn't win the title, but here's the thing. Would you rather have Ronda Rousey win the title from another face in Nia Jax, or would you rather she win the title from somebody that you hate enough that you want to see Ronda rip limb from limb and beat the ever-loving hell out of her? Which, guess what? That's exactly what you'll get when Ronda and Alexa collide. And it's gonna happen. Besides, chances are WWE, if they're gonna have Alexa, or if they're gonna have Ronda win the Raw Women's title, they're gonna want to have her do it at a marquee pay-per-view. And while Money in the Bank has stepped it up, it is amongst the elite. It's not greater than the elite. And by the elite, I mean SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and, although that's been open to debate as of late, Survivor Series. So guess what? This is a business decision, and WWE knows what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing here. And this was the right call. Now, I gotta admit, heading into the men's Money in the Bank match, I didn't think a Raw guy was gonna win. I didn't think a Raw guy was gonna win because I actually thought that there was no sense in having a Raw guy win when their champion is never there. So that's why I thought it was going to be a SmackDown guy and somebody challenging AJ. Most likely Joe, or not challenging, but stealing the belt. But that being said, and here's the other reason I didn't pick Braun Strowman. I thought he was too obvious. I thought he was too easy. Didn't stop them from letting it happen. But, I gotta admit, I like this because now you have a surefire way that Brock Lesnar is gonna lose that belt. Now, the big question is, how's he gonna do it? Is he gonna let somebody... Now, there's a couple of options on how this can happen. One is that he wins this match at Extreme Rules for the number one contendership, faces Brock, loses, but then cashes in afterwards, and then gets the win. Kind of cheesy, but so I don't see that one happening. But the other is he calls his shot and challenges Brock at SummerSlam. Or the other option is or somebody else challenges Brock, loses, and then Braun comes in and cashes in. One way or the other, Brock is not holding that belt past SummerSlam. But I gotta tell you, I couldn't be happier to see that Brock lose that belt, because frankly, him holding that belt is a disservice to the rest of that roster, because unlike, here's the difference between Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown has their champion, and he's there because he wants to be there because he loves the business. Brock is just a merc that's happy to get a paycheck, and that's all. So get that belt off of him, and get it off of him fast. Speaking of which, AJ Styles actually won the last man standing match. I'm starting to question where exactly they're going with Nakamura. I know that apparently him and Jeff Hardy are on a collision course. And I just don't know when exactly they're looking to let AJ drop the belt. I know that thanks to the new number one contenders match, he's set to that Rusev is now challenging him. Big step up for Rusev. But don't think for one second that Rusev is actually going to win this match. Because the way I see it, that's not going to happen. Yeah, but big step up for him. He was actually acknowledging the crowd a lot more, so the whole Rusev Day thing and him being a face, he seems to truly embraced it. Even shaking hands afterwards. Now, let's go to the other big story that happened on SmackDown. Big Cass getting fired. Well, they said released, but let's face facts here. His ass got fired. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to what caused it. And one is that he's had a bit of an attitude since coming back. And when he kind of went off script in a promo against Daniel Bryan, he did not like that. Vince didn't like it one little bit. But the other is that apparently there was an incident between him and his ex-girlfriend Carmella, where he wanted to try and reconcile with her. She wasn't having any of it. He grabbed her by the arm to where the Usos and Eric Rowan had to actually pull him off. And, of course, WWE didn't like that either. So, reportedly, they had a quick little meeting before SmackDown, and he got released. No, we wish you well in your future endeavors. And some people will say there isn't a professional term called being fired. It's just what we say, but... And I know that wrestlers are independent contractors, but in all honesty, he got fired. He got pink slipped, he got axed, he got the hammer dropped on him, and it's funny what a difference 3 years makes, because in the last 3 years, Enzo and Cass were a hot rising team in NXT. Then they get moved up to the main roster. They're a red-hot team fresh on the main roster. Now, both unemployed. Cass got fired. Enzo got fired. Enzo apparently is saying he wants no part of any wrestling ring, which, thanks for the good news, wannabe Eminem. But it's just amazing how in such a short time frame, two guys who truthfully accomplished absolutely nothing let fame that they thought was there, or, well, they did have fame. It's just not enough of fame to let it go to your head, which it did. And I'm just stunned. And probably a little disappointed in the fact that this is what it's come down to. So, good riddance, I guess can be said about this one. But, you know what? And, yeah, it's sounding like everywhere else is sounding like that the incident with him and Carmella is exactly what got Cass fired. And that after the incident happened, Vince got word of it, and he didn't like that one little bit, and thus pulled the plug on him. And that is why we ended up getting that little move that made absolutely no sense, where the Bludgeon Brothers attacked Daniel Bryan, which reportedly was supposed to be Big Cass, but that didn't happen. So, made absolutely no sense. No, but then again, it's WWE logic. What are you going to do? But, in any case, let's take one more quick break, people. Then we'll finish things up, and we'll be right back right after this.
This is Brian H. Waters, co-host of The Wrestling Realm and the host of Break It Down with Brian H. You're listening to The Shark Attack with Sean Williams.
Welcome back, people. Thank you again to Brian Waters for that plug. Alright, with that being said, we're getting close to the end with things, and of course I want to get to everything that you guys had said, so right now, it's time. This is time for From the Mouth of the Shark.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
Okay, first question was from my good friend Patrick, who first he asked, who do I see AJ Styles facing at Extreme Rules, but later we found out it was Rusev. So he came up with this two-part question. Is my thoughts on Paige as SmackDown GM so far, and do I think the right woman won Money in the Bank? You know, I still think that there are some who deserved, or not deserved, but probably could have benefited from winning that briefcase a lot more. Becky Lynch could have benefited from that. Sasha definitely could have benefited from that. In fact, it could have led to a heel turn for both of those two. But I think in the grand scheme of things, in terms of pushing Ronda to winning women's gold in WWE, I think that you made the right call, because it will get Alexa Bliss with the title, knows how to get heat, and she will most definitely know how to build for that match with Ronda. She'll add to the drama, and I think in the grand scheme of things, I think she was the right pick. And as far as Paige goes, I like the job that she's done. I mean, it was a tough break that her wrestling career had to end, but I like the fact that they're doing something with it, and they're making the most. She's making the most of it, so more power to her. So I'm all for her being the GM, and I like what they're doing with it. Next is my buddy Brian Waters. Who is the next to carry the NXT title? What will be the main event of SummerSlam? Given I know that Brock Lesnar is not booked for that event yet, but he's gonna be. So I would imagine that the main event is gonna be whoever wins the number one contenders match at Extreme Rules. And as far as who's the next to carry the NXT title, you know, you have quite a buffet of who could do it. But I don't see Adam Cole challenging for the NXT title until he drops the North American title. I would say, I'm gonna say Tommaso Ciampa. Yeah, it's kind of going out of nowhere. He's only, well, technically he's only won one singles match that I know, or no, check that. He's had more than one singles match, but honestly, I think that Triple H is high on both him and Gargano, and definitely wants to see those two have a showdown with the title on the line. So, I'm going to say the Sicilian Psychopath, Tommaso Ciampa. And Travis Yankee, the new rookie on the block. Will Seth Rollins get a shot of the Universal Champion in a one-on-one match? I guess he's at. So, I guess if I'm understanding it, you want to know if Seth Rollins will get another shot at the Universal title. You know, I'm not sure how I feel about Dolph Ziggler taking the belt from Seth, the Intercontinental title from Seth Rollins. And normally I would think that it's going to lead to him challenging for a bigger title. I just don't know if I see that just yet for Seth Rollins. Not that I'm not a fan of Seth Rollins, far from it. But I just think that I don't think it's the time. I just don't think it's going to happen. I do see him at some point challenging for a bigger title, but again, I feel like something is missing with Seth Rollins. And I can't put my finger on what it is. I just know I just can't help but feel something is definitely off. So that being said, I'm gonna say no. And one last kernel of wisdom for the attack tonight is, of course, we seem to now have back in full swing Bayley versus Sasha. Thank God. I mean, this feud has been building up for some time, and it's about time that you finally just kicked it back into high gear. Because I feel like you kind of got distracted from WrestleMania, WWE, but seriously, this is going to be a money feud, and it's just going to be off the hook. I mean, this is just going to me, further display what Sasha Banks and Bayley are capable of. And frankly, with Bayley, we need to see her get nasty, because I'm sorry, her whole gimmick, to me, it just was never going to cut it on the main roster, and I don't think it is. And personally, I'm still holding out for one day a heel turn takes place for Sasha Banks, because she just works so much better as a heel than as a face. She just does, and the boss gimmick works as a heel. But I get it. She's popular, and that's hard to shake. But again, I think that right now, this is the way. This is how it's going to go, and we're going to see what happens, and I'd love to see those two have a showdown at WrestleMania. But it's still early now that it's kicking back on, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening tonight. And, of course, we'll be back next week. Just a heads up, I will take not this coming week, but the following week off. Because, 4th of July and the holiday and everything. So I want to thank you guys for listening. My apologies for getting the show out late. But I'll be working hard to get this thing back for you as soon as possible, this next episode. So once again, I thank you. This has been The Shark Attack. I am Sean Williams, and I'll end the show with asking one question. What time is it?